All right, welcome to the Lax Lounge. We're in the Lax Lounge with Jimmy Dailey. Lax Lounge powered by Lax Locks. Jimmy, welcome, or should I call you James these days?
You know what? Hey, whatever makes you feel good.
For those of you that don't know, you must be living under a rock. This dude is one of the most dynamic players to ever come out of Division Three. We're talking Division Three Player of the Year, All American. Were you two-time All American?
Three
Three
time.
time, three-time All-American. He had an
I've been on for
extensive
2 minutes and you're already trying to sell me short, my man.
that's short guys, right?
Yeah, hey, you gotta do the most, right?
Had an extensive career in the MLO, 8 seasons in the MLO. You got 3 rings, bro. You got 3 rings in the MLO, right?
Yeah, just to preface that for any haters out there, yes, I was on the practice squad for those, but it was good to be a part of some unreal teams and play alongside with some great players.
That's badass, man. And you played in the Ohio Machine. That's probably my favorite stint of your career outside of playing with you at Stevenson. Dude, that was awesome. Being right in my backyard, that was pretty cool. Spending the summers in Columbus and seeing you play at Ohio Wesleyan for the Machine there.
Yeah, it was unreal, man. That was one of the most fun seasons I've had playing. You look at the guys on the team, Kyle Harrison, legend, Tommy Schreiber, legend, being able to play alongside with Steele and Marcus Holman. It was unbelievable. It was a lot of fun. And probably the most fun guy on the team was Scotty Rogers, the big rig.
I remember a couple nights out with Scotty back in the day. Oh man.
Dude, it's never a dull moment with my man Big Rig. So it was, dude, it was unreal, man. We were talking about off camera, getting to being able to catch up with your pops afterwards. A couple games was awesome, and always really enjoyed talking lax with him. So dude, it was such good memories, and the post games are fun too, man. Going to rooftop at Callahan's and Columbus was a good time, man. I definitely miss it, and those were fun. That was a fun year.
That was a little shout out to you, Billy T. He's probably sitting at home listening in, laughing his ass off. He used to ride you pretty hard, man. He used to ride you, Stephen Casimir, Richie. He's a Denison alum. So he played at Denison, and whenever we got to play him, man, I don't think anybody was chirping harder in the stands. But he loved you guys at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. Hey, look,
But
you gotta have some pride. You gotta have some pride where you went. So we're all fair game for it. And yeah, look, Denison's another iconic D3 program. So I was fortunate enough to get out there twice my sophomore and senior year, and they were awesome games and they were fun. And those as beat on those bus rides and everything, that's where I'm a big believer, and that's where a lot of the camaraderie comes from within the team and the locker room, the bus rides, all that good stuff.
man, we had some great bus rides, man. The freshman
We
year,
did.
the story time was badass.
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know, at least how it works at Stevenson or how it did work is every away game, the freshmen, the transfers, you get up on the way back, the mic is yours, you do a skit, you tell a story, whatever it is, but it better be funny. Your ass is going in the bathroom. So that's just the only thing. It could be about anything. It just better be funny. Everybody's a quiet freshman, all this and all that. And then you hear some of these stories and you're like, whoa, all right, this guy knows where he's at.
Like they really brought this guy in?
Yeah. Fortunately, though, there were a lot of those guys. So it was good. Had to have a short memory with some of those stories.
Yeah. Man, I'm telling you guys, I don't think I've ever seen footwork, honestly, as quick and as good as Jimmy Dailey. It was really great playing behind you, man. I learned so much just being in practice. I used to love going to practice because we get in one-on-one drills. We're behind an X, and I'm studying your footwork, man. And it was like, it really helped me. And I know it helped a lot of other guys, but I think that's really what helped you transition to the MLO. Really, it was probably your footwork. You just had advanced footwork that really nobody was seeing at that point in time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know what? Looking back, there were some, I think, major deficiencies in my game that I think really reared their head out in the MLL. And I think the lack of mid range or beyond shooting the ball, especially coming out, I think limited me a little bit, especially like early on. I really had to rely almost solely on the quickness and on the footwork to create offense and get to the front of the goal, score, create slide, feed, things like that. But yeah, I had to rely on that, man, because at that time I was probably pushing the ball about 80 miles an hour on the fast break, and the goalie almost saved it twice if I was running the point. He reacted, then it showed up, then it was a fast break. So I had to break some people down at X, man, and get some playing time.
But it was cool, man, because you're quick enough to avoid the concussions. I thought I was quick. I thought it was fast, but I think I still ended up in one of those Rydell helmets for a little bit back in
Hey,
2010.
you had a good change of direction in speed and quickness, man. And hey, look, man, if it makes you feel any better, Steve Casimir was rocking with that fucking Rydell helmet for a whole year. It just makes me wonder, how did Rydell approve that fucking helmet? That was basically like the Rydell speed that like Derrick Henry wears.
Dude, seriously, how heavy those things were, and you could pump it up like on the inside, right?
Yeah,
And who else was using that in D1? I think who was it? Bryant was rocking them, like, and like people just really wearing those things, and I'm like,
and they were so brutal.
that was
They
probably
were
the
so
worst helmet in
brutal.
lacrosse history. I honestly would have rather worn the back rack, like the old
Right,
with
right.
the
Because at
tie
least,
up.
I mean, look, man, and we're in the especially right now, we're in the age where the 80s fashion is in, man. I'm waiting for a box helmet to come back on the scene,
How do you
right?
feel?
Add it to the portholes.
Right? I don't know. I like where the equipment's going though in the game. I think it's moving the right direction. It looks really good. You and I we're big tilt guys, right? So
Gotta be, bro.
I think the tilt game is still there. It's with these
I
helmets.
mean, bro, if you were going to play on the Stevenson offense between the years of 2007 and 2011, bro, if you're going to be an attacker and you have no tilt, you were going to be a midfielder.
D mini.
You were gonna, you were going to be a midfielder. Any attackman in those years, bro, we were rocking tilt.
Like Harley can see. If you can't see,
I mean,
then get
you
off
got
the
to do
field,
it,
bro.
man. It's like, you know what, man? Look, if you got to look up a little bit to see peering out of the helmet, the only thing it's going to do is strengthen your traps a little bit. You're going to be all right.
Yeah. And going back to the college years, man, like honestly, people ask me like, what was my favorite attack line of all time? And like I put you guys up there with honestly a lot of D1 attack lines. I mean, you guys were just so dynamic. I mean, it was literally a highlight reel every single game. Like you, Kaz, Richie, that 2010 squad, '09, that was unbelievable, bro. How was it playing with those guys?
It was great. There we had a from Coach Cannon in the offense. We had a lot of freedom to make things work and make things happen, and it was very free flowing. There wasn't a ton of rules, and you could let either your athleticism and or your creativity take over. It was really a kind of a player's dream offensively. I don't know about defensively with the turnovers coming back down the other way at times, but offensively, man, you're able to let it rip and go out there and play. It was a lot of fun, and it's a good system to be in if you want to generate numbers and play fast and touch the ball. That's definitely the system to be in. Of course, now with the shot clock, man, it's everybody's got to play faster. Just the
Right.
game in general, it moves, and not to jump forward, but with that, I think we back in the 2010, 2011, playing fast like that was like a precursor for what we're seeing now at the shot clock. And in my opinion, man, it's the best way to play lacrosse. Maybe not necessarily overboard reckless, but to be able to play fast, make decisions, play off of the decision making of other guys on the team, and just the movement and the counter movement. It's a lot of fun, man. So I'm happy to have played in that system, and I'm happy to see where the game is going with the shot clock, and I'm happy to see other teams adapt that style, whether it's a little more organized with sets and plays and things of that nature, but they're really forced to have guys who can create, move the ball, and then they got to find a way to get a shot off. So it's been a lot of fun, and I think that those Stevenson teams of old were like a foreshadow of kind of what the game is now.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that because we had Sean Ewert on, assistant coach of Providence last week, and we were talking about his coaching style. He's their offensive coordinator. And one of the reasons why Coach Benson brought him on was because he liked that high pace style of lacrosse. Possess the ball still, but you're always looking for a shot, always looking for a shot, always looking to shoot off the dodge and move the ball pretty quickly, right? Play fast. And seems like that's what's winning games now in Division One, really being quick. Those fast break teams are the ones dominating. You look at Virginia, you look at UVA, you look at Duke. When Duke is buzzing, they're playing fast. Q's obviously, right? Um,
And one thing with the shot clock, it forces the offenses to do and how it's executed and how it's coached is basically now when you have a dodge, whether you get your sub guys in or you're coming out of the box, you get your guys, you get everybody in and you have that initial dodge. You really have to either move it through X, Y, and then when it gets to that second or third pass, you got to go. It's a lot of fun. It forces schematically to either have your athletes in good places off the catch, off that original dodge in the transfer pass, or it forces you to play on either two-man from behind or the wings. And we're seeing so popular now with the kind of that high 2-2-2 look with the pick. But it forces you on that second or third pass off the first dodge. You got to be able to go and get a shot off, or you're never going to score. So it's a lot of fun when you watch teams like Virginia do it. And quite frankly, the team that I know they've had a couple losses. One was a bad loss, but I think the team that I was most impressed with how they were able to play tempo wise was actually Hopkins. When you watch what they were able to do, a lot of Canadian base with the two-man, but they moved the ball quick, man, and they were able to swing it really from side to side. And they had, his name 23, I think, at X-Man, who's a baller. He's quick. So they were running that Canadian two-man style on each wing. And then when the ball would get to X, so they wanted to take an alternative look from the two-man stuff, he would get it either off the end line or off the catch in the spin, and he would go. So was really excited about that. And one thing that I like playing X is we're seeing a lot more quick X attackmen since this shot clock. I think for a couple years we got a little too heavy on the two-man game stuff. Time and a place for it absolutely makes offenses more dynamic, makes players more dynamic. But look, I think you look at some of the best players in the country and the best players in the world. The biggest difference is the good guys from the great guys can go get theirs when they need to get it, and they don't really need a pick. They don't really need a magic play. They can go get it when they need to get it, man. You look at Lyle Thompson, Rob Pennell, my favorite player in college lacrosse right now, who I think, bar none, could be some controversy, bar none right now. Connor Schellenberger is
boom. You said it.
He is here, man. He is here, and that's no disrespect to anybody else, but right now he is fucking here, and everybody else is down lower because he is, man. There is no fucking weakness in his game when he is able to. Basically, would be a first-team All-American at midfield or attack. When you watch what he's able to do off the ISO dodge or off the two-man, and he can do it from X, he can do it from Y, he can do it from the wing. He's got great vision. He can shoot. Yeah, you watch the Maryland game, he played almost exclusively up top. Just unbelievable. I don't know if I've seen a guy who is as skilled across the board. I'm not comparing anybody. I'm just saying a guy who is more skilled across the board since fucking Casey Powell. This guy, he can do it all. He can do it all.
Vision too. And I think the best move I've seen in college lacrosse, maybe in lacrosse, is the refuse the pick that he does. Where it's just unreal, so unbelievable. That first step to that second step is just, it's ankle breaking.
It's great that somebody with some quickness is fine. Look, I don't want to say finally. There's been guys who have been able to do it, but one thing that I always felt like I didn't like picks if they were there. One thing I felt like you could get savvy with is almost fake, like you're going off. And man, he's got the quickness and he's got the setup to do it, and he does it. And that I don't know if you saw that clip that against Maryland where he did it, man, and everybody bit. And they were on both guys were on the other side of the pick. He went because the guy guarding the ball, he's laying back, expecting the pick. This guy Schellenberger is so quick when he gets off it. The trail guy, if they're going to switch, has to be so far in front.
Right, with that change of direction. Yeah, with that change of direction and that vision, I mean, it's freeing all those guys up. Cormier with probably I guess he's the number one goal scorer in Virginia lacrosse history, which is absolutely insane. And I really I'm not saying no disrespect to Cormier whatsoever. His game is really incredible. I think he's going to be sick in the PLO. I think he's going to be sick in the NLL as well. But to have a guy like Schellenberger like that be able to free you up, you're going to see a lot of time and room. You're going to be able to get your hands free, and you're going to be able to do some special things off the catch, just like you were talking about. And it's just been
absolutely, man.
So I think you agree with me that Virginia UVA is probably the most fun team to watch right now in college.
Man, I've watched, I don't know, they played 9 games. I've probably watched 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
And dude, they rock and roll. The defense is long and physical, and they move pretty well. The goalie's really good. But then, man, you look at the offense, and they have they're all over the place. Man, they got midfielders who can play attack. They got some attackmen like Schellenberger who can play midfield. So it's a matchup nightmare in a sense because they just have guys who can really do it from all over. And then you have the kid from Tufts in there who's a Canadian, and his ability in the box background has helped him a lot coming in as a midfielder. And he's another one that has really good vision. Man, Virginia, for my money, I think is probably the best team, and they're a lot of fun to watch, man. They have some ballers on that team, and McCabe, man, McCabe Millen has been balling. He's a freshman, and he's second in points on the team. So when you look at that attack line with Schellenberger and Cormier and McCabe, for my money, they're all three going to be all Americans this year. So, in my opinion, easily the best attack line in the country. They can all score, they all get theirs, they all produce, they all put up numbers. So
It's
they're fun to
incredible.
watch, man.
They're incredible to
They're
watch.
fun to watch.
My only gripe about UVA, and this is coming from a Sox perspective, and Vegas gives them a ton of respect, which they should. They deserve it.
Sure.
But these guys never cover because the spread is always insanely high. It's always 10, it's always 11. And it's as soon as they get to that magic number, as soon as they get to 10, here come the bench. Here comes the bench. Lars is gonna empty the bench. Lars, if you're listening, just let the boys cover maybe once, twice this year. Maybe let them cover a
You know
couple
what?
times.
It certainly doesn't help that they have to play an ACC schedule either, man, because it's got to be a nightmare to cover those games with you're playing Duke and Syracuse and Notre Dame, and this is the schedule they play at large. You got to give them a lot of respect, man. Their schedule is fucking death row. You look at it, it's Maryland, Hopkins out of conference, and then it's boom, Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse, Notre Dame, and it's good Lord. So
And it's just back to
props
back to
them, man.
back, second half of the season. And then it's really unbelievable. You're basically playing almost a number one team week in and week out in the second half of the year. And that's where we're at. A lot of fun lacrosse coming up. And we got
it's
Duke
fun,
and
man.
Cuse this weekend. Or
Which
not
is
Duke,
which
and
is
we got Notre Dame and Cuse, actually. Notre Dame and
I think
Syracuse.
it's Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame and Cuse, which is going to be awesome. I watched that Duke Cuse last game. That was awesome, man. Cuse is looking like a young team that they're learning how to win, man, and they're another team loaded. And the future's bright, man. When you look at the attackmen and kind of the next guys with Spallina there and McCabe Millen at Virginia, those guys are going to be duking it out for the next couple of years. As an attackman, it's fun to see these next guys come up, and everybody is unbelievably fucking skilled, man. And it's a lot of fun.
And from our perspective, it's great seeing, just like you mentioned, that kid from Tufts, these D3 transfers are coming in and they're making an impact right away. When you look at, there's a kid from Ohio State transferred, he starts, he's been balling. And just like you talked about, a guy from Tufts at UVA it's just really incredible. But that kind of leads me into, when we played in Division III, it seemed like the talent level was just unbelievable. Do you think it's still that high? Or do you think that with more D1 programs and a few more D2 programs that less guys are going to Division III now?
Bingo. I think when I was in college, I want to say the number of D1 teams was somewhere in the mid 50s. I believe it is 72 now. So even since I've been out of college, which has been a while now, you're looking at High Point, Jacksonville, Richmond, Michigan, and we could go on and on.
Yeah,
Boston U, there's good programs. I'm just going off the top of my head. So no disrespect to anybody, but just off the top of my head, just those programs alone. And then you could add 5, 6, 7 more onto that. I think Merrimack now has moved up from D2 to D1. So yeah. And it's unfortunate. Yes, I don't think Division III is as talented as it was 10, 15 years ago because there's just more opportunities now at the Division I level where, maybe that D1 kid who slipped through the cracks or the fringe kid who was right on, there's just more roster spots. And now you look at these rosters, man, and they're like, these rosters are damn near 60 deep with everybody. It's not just a Stevenson thing anymore. And they were rolling out an army and everybody's, what's going on? Every program now is keeping what it seems to be upwards of 55 to 60 guys. So when you factor that in on a trickle down effect, yeah, it certainly is going to have implications on that. But having watched the Mustang Classic and watching how good Salisbury was last year in the D3 title game, and then I watched RIT Tufts, man, they're still in those top 3-4 teams, man. There's still some ballers, still some kids that can play. I was really impressed with RIT. I think they may have taken a loss, but I was really impressed with them. They were really good. And I still think the top 3 teams, man, can go and compete in Division I anywhere from probably 15 down, 17 down, somewhere in there. I would feel comfortable putting those Salisbury Tufts, RIT in that window of teams that I'm not going to say they're going to win, but I think that they could go there. And if they're going to play the 18th ranked Boston U, or they're going to play Delaware, they're going to play Michigan, I think that those teams could contend and be a threat to win the game for sure, which is fun for D3. I think it was probably, when we were there, probably closer to 5, 6. And I think that those 5, 6 had probably more Division I caliber guys on them.
Yeah.
But kudos at the top, man. Those teams I think can still contend with the more second, third tier teams in D1 and make it fun and compete and be in the game.
Yeah, and those years at Stevenson that you were there, I honestly think just about everybody on that offense, really on that starting lineup, could have played D1, and a lot of them were D1 transfers. But I think you're seeing it the other way now. I think you're seeing the D3 transfer to the D1 to Division 1. I think kids are coming in, they're getting game experience in college and Division 3, and coaches are
Yeah,
finding them. They're not stopping recruiting. They're trying to get more kids into the transfer portal. After talking with Sean Ewert with Providence, they're really keeping an eye on that transfer portal. Division 3 talent is definitely something they're still looking at. So kids out there,
right. To go on your point, man, and not to get it confused, I think that the teams now have less Division I capable kids, but nonetheless, they do have Division I capable kids, of course. And the one thing that struck me over the last couple of years with getting this extra COVID year, the D3 kids who have went in the portal and went D1, I forget the kid's name at High Point. I'm not a historian as much as I pay
uh,
attention as much as I used to be. That kid was really good. I think there was a kid at Michigan or at Hopkins that was really good. So the kids that have left the upper echelon program, the kid Boyden at Virginia, dude, they've all gone on to D1 programs and they've been like not just roster fillers, they've been difference makers. They've been guys who start or play significant minutes and contribute rather significantly. So it does show you that even if the talent level in Division 3 is a little less now, by no fault of its own, basically because of a numbers game, there still are those Division 1 capable kids that get shots at big time programs and go and contribute and play really well. So I think that's another feather in the cap. So it's good to see, and it just go to show you that for whatever reason, lacrosse is a little different than football and basketball, man. You can have several Division 3 kids walk right up to an ACC team and be fucking contributors, man. I think it's awesome.
I think it's really great, and I think if a kid's dream now is to play Division 1 lacrosse, I don't think the road to do that is just a scholarship in. I think you can really go Division 3, go Division 2, get some more eyes on you, then make that jump. Honestly, I think it's really good for the game. It mixes it up and it keeps lacrosse unique, just like you said. And
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, there's opportunity. And another thing too is it's crazy, but you've seen it, I've seen it. Recruiting is so imperfect. Like obviously, you're going to hit on kids. Syracuse hit on Spallina. Virginia's hitting on McCabe. They're just great players. There's guys who are just going to be transcendently great players, right? Like they're just been always great. They're always going to be great. But for a lot of the other unknowns or guys that necessarily aren't home runs, recruiting can be an unknown science and you never really know what you get in terms of the physical and the skill development when they get there, man. Some guys get physically better. Some guys, the game slows down and it really clicks for them. So you never really know what you get. So a guy 2-3 years in, or maybe he gets a grad year for whatever reason, they go on, man, and they're more than ready. They're
yeah,
just a different player than they were to the top of the pack relative 4, 5, 6 years earlier when they were in high school. And that development's really important.
absolutely. And just to touch on what you're talking about as far as the D3 skill level, it's funny. Mitchell Pelkey actually did an interview with Berkman at Salisbury at the beginning of the season. And one of the things he asked him was, do you think you could compete? And they're like, absolutely. We think we can compete with top 25 teams. But that was the cool
Sure.
thing about being at Stevenson, right? It's like those jogs over to Towson and those D1 scrimmages we had, were those like some of your most fun games in college, even though they were just scrimmages?
Yeah, man, I would say one of my most fun games was because early on, man, I think we played my first couple years. This was prior to you getting there, but we had played VMI in the fall, and then the following year we went up to Princeton and we played Holy Cross and we played Maryland's younger guys, and that was good. We played Maryland a couple times when you were there. We played mainly their younger guys, but I think my favorite, really of all time, was when we played Towson in 2010 in the fall, and it was legitimate starters versus starters, 1v1 for 3 quarters. And one of my good friends from high school, Travis Love, was their starting goalie. He was really good there. And I think it was 8-6, 8-7, them after 3 quarters of grinding out. We were obviously right with them. And that just shows you
Yeah,
Salisbury, especially, I mean, they have the expectation where, yeah, of course, they definitely feel they can compete. So very cool. Those are the energy in those
it was
those
unreal,
games
man.
he was
That game
making.
was awesome. That was a
Everybody's ratcheted up. And, oh, it's
yeah.
unreal.
It
It's
got
unreal.
heated. It got heated at a couple times, and it
It did,
was
man.
it was really cool. That yeah, but after the game, you're all boys again, and
Of
that's
course.
the beauty of lacrosse. But going talking about Division 3, what were your favorite atmospheres in Division 3? Like on the road, like what were some of your favorite places to play? I have
You
mine, but I kind
know,
of want to see what yours were.
honestly, man, I think one of the things, and look, it's different. I don't have direct Division 1 playing experience because what on TV when Maryland plays in the CQ Stadium, that looks like it's a lot of fun. And the new stadium at North Carolina looks awesome. And obviously, Clockner at Virginia looks a lot of fun. And Notre Dame's got a really nice stadium. But it does seem at times that Division 1 as a whole can be a little more, I don't want to use the word buttoned up, but it can be a little more kind of that corporate feeling where there's so much going on campus that it really is such an afterthought that it's just not a lot of people there. And if it is, it's in a multi venue where there's a big track
Big.
around it, and it just feels very distant. Where a
Mm.
lot of times, Division 3, what I've noticed when we went to Roanoke, the stadium there, the crowd is right on the field. At Stevenson, the crowd's right on the field. At Lynchburg, they throw shit at you from the
That
fucking
was
top of the dorm.
fucking sweet, man.
So I think the cool thing about Division 3, and from what I understand in the NESCAC, it's very similar. I think the cool thing about Division 3 is as like an institution, it's a little more intimate in the sense that it's not as a it doesn't feel quite as official. We have this big stadium where they got to fit 20 sports into. Maybe it's they have a couple different smaller venues where you're able to fill, and it's a lot more of an intimate scene. And the crowd a lot of times is either right in the stands or on the hill opposite. So I think you get a more rowdy student section. And I felt that I don't know if it's because at the time and all the shit that Stevenson was talking, but we would show up and there would be some pretty solid crowds at places and they seemed like they were tailgating. It seemed like maybe they didn't go to bed yet from the night before. They were riled up and talking a whole lot of shit and saying a bunch of shit and throwing shit, and it was a lot of fun, man. And I think that those atmospheres in Division 3, I think, are a little more intimate than what you get across the board in Division 1. And look, the big time Division 1, man, it looks unreal. But I'm
Yeah, it
talking
does.
about just as a whole. We went a lot of places, man. It was a lot of crowds right on the fucking field, and it was a lot of fun, man.
And you're right. That's why they're building the more intimate stadiums in Division 1. You see the
Right,
new Ohio State lacrosse facility, Michigan's new lacrosse facility, and these are
right.
lacrosse specifics. And this is just how far the game has gone, which was awesome to see. But yeah, just like you're saying, we would love to see that Maryland, right, kind of get their own lacrosse specific stadium. They're still
Sure.
playing. They're still playing in Bird. I think it's Bird. They're still playing there, that big stadium.
Well, dude, like you said, Ohio State's new stadium's unbelievable, man. I had a kid that I was a family friend and a kid that I used to train a bit. He just finished up there. Their new stadium looks unbelievable, man. But see, back when we were in college, a lot of those lacrosse only stadiums, they were like just starting to take off. A lot of times, my point about the D1 versus D3 thing, a lot of times in D1, you're playing in much bigger venues, man, and they just felt really empty and really distant. Where in
Yeah,
Division 3, naturally it's going to be a smaller venue. It's just a smaller school. It's going to attract smaller crowds.
the
Crowds
crowd.
right on the
Yeah,
field. Yeah, 1,000 people, 1,500, 2,500, 3,000. It felt like the venue felt filled up and it felt fucking rocking and rolling compared to going to Navy. And nothing against Navy. I love Navy, but just going there, man, maybe it's like a half of a sideline is filled up and the arena just feels so spaced out that it
yeah,
just feels very like you're almost playing before like a Ravens game where it's
yeah.
just you're such like the curtain is not even open yet and you're like the opening act where when we would go down to Roanoke or Lynchburg, it was like the fucking nuts getting off the bus. It was fun. So I think that intimacy is what made Division 3 a lot of fun. But look now with the new funding and the new stadiums in Division 1, they're certainly getting that now with the lacrosse specific stadiums. But to your point, that's where the sport is taking off and going. It's awesome to see.
No, it's a lot of fun to see. And I would have to say probably my favorite D3 lacrosse memory was probably at Lynchburg. And I grew up, my dad being playing at Denison. So grew up going to a ton of Denison lacrosse games. Shout out to Mike Caravana. We go to a ton of Denison OWU lacrosse games, probably the rowdiest atmosphere until I saw us play at Lynchburg. And holy shit, dude. That was next level.
Well, dude, I'll
I've
give
never heard
Denison.
so many chirps.
Oh my God. And I'll give Dennison the props too, man. We went out there in 2009 and 2011. And I think it was a tight game in 2009, right before we got the 1 seed, and the crowd was rowdy. Obviously, in 2011, we kicked their ass, but
Smacked them.
look, they were there, man. They were liquored up both games, saying a bunch of shit as we were coming out. And It was fun, man, and that's part of the atmosphere that's just a lot of fun because quite frankly, in Division III, you're not rolling into a 30, 40, 50,000 seat stadium, so it was fun, but yeah, Lynchburg,
Yeah.
man, fucking
Out
I
of
missed that.
control, man. Absolutely nuts. You guys, I think it was my freshman year at Lynchburg. I think you guys were like down like 6-7. We were down like 6 or
Yeah,
7
you gotta
at
get an
half.
early lead there, man. It sucks playing catch
Yeah.
up there.